It was a moonless night in the small, remote town of Eldridge, hidden deep within a thick forest. The locals spoke in hushed tones about the notorious road that wound through the woods, the Ghost Highway. This desolate road was known for one spine-tingling legend that sent shivers down the spines of all who heard it. The legend of the night driver. Legend had it that every night, like clockwork, a ghostly driver would emerge from the shadows. The night driver was an entity that defied explanation, and it had haunted the Ghost Highway for centuries. Some claimed to have seen a phantom carriage, pulled by translucent horses, while others swore they had witnessed a modern automobile driven by a spectral figure. But one thing remained constant: the night driver only appeared with the stroke of midnight and vanished into thin air as the first rays of dawn pierced the darkness. The Ghost Highway was shrouded in an eerie silence as the world held its breath, waiting for the arrival of the enigmatic entity. The town's residents avoided the Ghost Highway like the plague, speaking of it only in hushed whispers. But one group of friends, drawn to the mysteries of the supernatural, decided to confront the legend head-on. Sarah, the leader of the group, had always been fascinated by the paranormal. She gathered her friends, Mark, the skeptical scientist, Emma, the horror enthusiast, and Jake, the daring daredevil, to accompany her on this eerie adventure. As midnight approached, the group gathered at the entrance to the Ghost Highway. The air was thick with tension, and the dark trees loomed ominously on either side of the road. Sarah led the way, clutching her flashlight tightly. The moon, shrouded by clouds, cast an eerie glow on the winding road. Mark, the scientist, couldn't help but scoff at the idea of encountering a ghostly driver. "This is all just superstition," he muttered, trying to hide the unease creeping into his voice. Emma, on the other hand, was filled with excitement. She had her camera ready, hoping to capture evidence of the night driver. "I've read so many stories about this place," she said. "I can't believe we're finally here." Jake, the daredevil, was the only one who appeared fearless. "If this night driver shows up," he joked, revving his motorcycle's engine, "I'll invite him for a race." As the clock struck midnight, a bone-chilling silence enveloped the group. Their footsteps on the pavement seemed to echo louder, and the woods seemed to close in on them. Just as doubt began to creep in, a faint, distant sound reached their ears, the unmistakable rumble of an engine. The group froze, their eyes widening as they watched a pair of dim headlights emerge from around the bend. The car, an antique sedan from a bygone era, glided toward them without a sound. It moved with an eerie grace, almost floating above the road. Its windows were tinted black, making it impossible to see inside. The night driver had arrived. Sarah's heart pounded in her chest as she watched in awe and terror. The others exchanged nervous glances but stood their ground. The night driver's approach was inexorable, and it was clear that it was heading straight for them. Emma raised her camera, her hands trembling as she tried to capture a photograph of the otherworldly entity. But just as she pressed the shutter, the night driver's headlights flickered, and the car vanished into thin air, leaving only the echo of its engine and a cold gust of wind in its wake. The group stood in stunned silence, unable to comprehend what they had just witnessed. It had all happened so fast, leaving them with more questions than answers. "Did anyone manage to get a photo?" Sarah asked, her voice barely above a whisper. Emma checked her camera, but the display showed only a blurred, empty frame. "Nothing," she replied, her disappointment evident. Mark, who had been the most skeptical of them all, was now pale and wide-eyed. "I can't explain that," he admitted, his scientific mind struggling to grasp the inexplicable. Jake, the daredevil, looked more serious than ever. "That was no ordinary car," he said, his voice low. We need to find out more. As the group continued down the ghost highway, they were gripped by a sense of foreboding. The night driver's appearance had raised more questions than answers. What was its purpose? Why did it haunt this desolate road? And who was the entity behind the wheel? As they ventured deeper into the forest, strange occurrences began to unfold. The temperature dropped drastically, and the air became thick with an eerie fog that obscured their vision. Unearthly whispers echoed through the trees, and shadowy figures seemed to dart in and out of sight. Suddenly, the group stumbled upon a clearing in the woods. In the center of the clearing stood an ancient, dilapidated mansion. Its once grand facade was now weathered and crumbling, and its windows were shattered. The mansion exuded an aura of malevolence, and the group couldn't shake the feeling that they were being watched. Without a word, they cautiously approached the mansion's front door, which creaked open eerily as if beckoning them inside. Sarah led the way, her flashlight cutting through the darkness of the mansion's interior. The air inside was heavy with dust and decay, and the walls seemed to ooze with an unsettling energy. The group ventured further in, each step echoing through the empty halls. They came upon a grand ballroom, its once beautiful chandeliers now shattered and strewn across the floor. In the center of the room stood a grand piano, untouched by time and decay. The keys of the piano began to play a haunting melody on their own, as if controlled by an unseen hand. The group watched in awe and terror as the piano played a mournful tune. It was then that a figure emerged from the shadows, slowly approaching them. It was a woman, dressed in an elegant gown from a bygone era, her eyes empty and soulless. Sarah gasped as recognition washed over her. "It's her," she whispered. "The night driver." The ghostly woman's lips moved, but no sound came out. Instead, her voice echoed in their minds. "You seek answers, do you not?" she asked, her voice carrying a hint of sadness. The group nodded, unable to speak. The ghostly woman's form flickered, and for a moment, she appeared as the night driver they had seen earlier. "I am bound to this place," she explained. "Cursed to roam the ghost highway for all eternity." "Why?" Mark finally managed to ask. The ghostly woman's eyes filled with sorrow. "Long ago, I was a bride, betrothed to a wealthy man who lived in this mansion. On our wedding night, a terrible accident occurred on the ghost highway, and my husband was killed. In my grief, I made a pact with dark forces to bring him back to life." She continued, her voice quivering. "But the price was high. I was cursed to become the night driver, forever seeking my lost love on the haunted road. I can never find him, and I can never leave." Tears welled up.